Welcome to a new video on the CBI channel. In this tutorial series we are developing a full stack application using Python Django as our backend and React.js as our front end. This is the fourth video in this tutorial series. In previous videos we've already set up our Python Django backend, we've created our React.js front end, and we have enabled page navigation with React Router. In this video, we're going to continue and we're going to make our front end look much better by creating a navigation menu using components from Material UI. And to realize this, we're going to follow 6 steps. We're going to start by installing packages for Material UI so we can use all of those nice components in our application code. Next, we're going to go over to the documentation and we're going to check out the available navigation menus and select the one that we want inside of our project. We're also going to copy that code and put it in one of our JS files. Next, we're going to start customizing that because we want to display our own menu items, which need to go to the pages that we've created in our previous video. Once we've done that, we can add the navbar to our app.js file. We're going to make a small change so that we are sure that the entire content of our pages is fitted into the remaining space of the navigation menu. As a last bonus step, I'm also going to show you how you can make your navigation menu responsive so that the navigation disappears when your screen becomes much smaller, which can be really handy for mobile users. So we're now on the Material UI documentation, and Material UI enables us to use pre-built components inside of our React.js application, and this makes it really easy to implement some of these components and customize them inside of our code ourselves. And the first step towards using Material UI inside of our React.js front end is by installing some packages. And you can already see them on the bottom here. We need to install Material UI. We also need to install Emotion React and lastly Emotion Styled. So I'm just going to copy this string here, and I will also include this link into the description so you can do the same. And we're now going to head over to our front end code and install these packages. So we are back in our front end, and I'm going to stop the server and paste the code in here. And now click on enter. And it's going to take some time for all of these packages to be installed. All right, and my installs are now complete. By the way, you can see that I have 6 high severity vulnerabilities. This happens when you use create React app as an install. And these vulnerabilities are nothing to be worried about. So you can just continue even if you have high severity vulnerabilities, right? Okay, we're now going to install one additional package, and that is the Material UI icons library. And doing that, we can use all of these icons from Material UI, and it's going to make our code a lot more beautiful. So I'm going to take from this icons side only the npm install at MUI/icons material, because the other packages we've just installed already, so we only need this one for now. So I'm over in my code, and in the front end I'm going to do npm install at MUI/icons material, and let's give it some time to install. Alright, and also that install is now complete. So let's return to the Material UI documentation and check how we can integrate their navigation menus inside of our app. So we are back inside of the Material UI documentation. I'm going to click Get Started. And this will bring us to a place where we can see how we can get started with Material UI, but it also brings us to a menu on the left-hand side that says Components. And underneath Components, we can find all of the different things that Material UI has to offer. So for example, over here, you've got different buttons, you've got different text fields, sliders, ratings, all these kind of things. And we're going to look for the components that state the navigation menu. So I'm going to scroll all the way down, and at a certain point we're going to hit navigation. And here we find all different kinds of things that we can use to navigate to different pages. So for example, the first one is bottom navigation. So here we see a couple of buttons that enable us to go to different pages. But the thing that we are actually looking for is a drawer, because the drawer provides often a top bar and also a sidebar with different items. And to me, that seems like the best way to navigate to the different pages. So when we scroll down on the drawer, you can see that there are different ways of doing this. I would like to have an app bar and the drawer clipped underneath the app bar, because I think that looks the best out of everything here. So what you can do now is you can go and click on the sandbox, which takes you to a sandbox where you can actually view all of the code used for this particular one. But you can also copy the entire code. And I'm first going to click on show the code, and there you can see everything that is used inside of this file to generate this nice clipped drawer. And I want to use this inside of my application. So to do that, I'm just going to copy our full code right here. And I'm going to go back to my application to paste it inside of a new file. So back in my application and under the components folder into source, I'm going to add a new file called navbar.js. And in there, I'm just going to paste the whole code that they have provided us with. And immediately there are some things inside of this code which I don't think that I'm really going to need. There's a lot of different typographies in here. And if we go back to this example, this is actually where the content takes place. But I want to display my own content here. I don't want to have this pre-filled content. So I'm just going to delete that from the code. So back in our code, and I'm actually going to delete this full typographies right here, just cleaning up the code a little bit. So that is nice as well. What we're going to do next is customizing the items that we see on our navbar. Currently it's generating a list and there are different items on the list, but it generates that based on this here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the divider and I'm going to remove the list on the bottom. What it does right here is going to loop over these things and create an item for each one of them. But for now, I'm just going to hard code mine. So I'm going to delete this function that is looping over that code. And I'm also just going to delete this icon and the text thing with disabled padding. So let's start up by configuring this for our homepage. So, and on the list item text, I'm going to provide the text that I want to see on my menu item. And in this case, that is going to be equal to home. The next thing that I want to add is an icon so that it shows a nice icon which fits the description of the page that we want to go to. And to realize that, we are back at material icons, and here I can search for an icon that I want to use. So I'm searching for home, and that gives me this nice house, and I can copy that and take that to my code. So back in our code, on the top, I need to paste that in. So we import the home icon. And now I can take that and bring that to the list item icon and say that this is going to be equal to the home icon. Next thing we need is a link, because right now we have a nice item that states home, but also want to have the link included that is going to actually bring us home. To do that, we need to use another component from React Router DOM. So I'm going to go to the top, and from React Router DOM, I'm going to import two things. So I'm going to import link, which is going to bring us to the designated page. And I'm also going to import use location, which is going to help us determine what the current location is of the user inside of the application. That's going to be really helpful because I also want to identify whether the page that I'm currently at is the one that I have selected. So let's first start with the link. So in list item button, I'm going to define that the component is going to be equal to link. So now we're letting it know that it is actually a link. And I also need to define where that link is going to. And in this case, it is going to home, and the home path is just the default. The next thing that I want to do is I want to evaluate whether this navigation menu item is selected or not. Because when I'm already at the home page, I want to kind of highlight it in a different color because the user knows that it's already on that page. And to do that, we need to evaluate whether this link right here is the one that we're currently on. And luckily, we've just imported use location from React Router DOM because that one is going to help us. So underneath the function name, I'm going to define two constants. The first constant is going to be called location, and that's going to be equal to use location. And this is going to tell us everything about the location where the user is currently at. And the next thing I'm going to do is define a constant named path, and then we specify location.pathname. And this is actually the URL where we're currently at. And that's going to be really convenient for us because the path name is going to be, like the extension where we're at. So what we can now do is we can use this path to evaluate whether we are at the same path as what we expect. So we're going to define selected. When we want it to be selected, this extension right here that we currently have is going to be equal to the path. Because when it's the same, then we want it highlighted. And by doing it like this, it should be correct. Now we also need to do the same things for our create and for our about page. So I'm just going to copy this piece of code, paste it 2 times, and quickly change it. So this link right here, I wanted to have the about as text, and the URL is going to be /about. And I also want to identify whether something is selected when it's about. And we also need to find an icon for that. And I'm just going to type in about and see what it brings to me. Yeah, I think this info icon will do just fine. So similar as before, I'm going to go to the top of my code. I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to go back to my list item icon and say that we have the info icon right here. And that should be all right. We need to do the same for our create page, and that is going to be at the create path. And you also notice that these ones need to be the same as the ones that you've defined in your app.js file. So I'm following these ones just to make it clear. And what I also need is another icon for that. So back at our icons, and I'm going to say create. So we have this one, we have this one. I'm just going to go and say I want this one. So I'm going to copy it, back to the code, back up again, border color icon, and we are going to put that inside of the home icon because this one needs to be create. And let's save it. All right, I think for a first version, this is going to do just fine. Maybe we will change some other things later on. The things that I will change is this is currently called clipped drawer, and I'm just going to call it navbar. And I'm also going to delete the things that we don't use, and you can notice those by being kind of like grayed out. So this one I don't use anymore, and I don't use the divider anymore either, just to clean it up a little bit. And that should be absolutely fine. Another slight change that I'm also going to make is I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the disable padding on the list item, because otherwise it's not going to look as nice as it should. All right, so let's save this right here. I believe here it also states the name of our application. Now I don't really have a name, but I'm just going to say that it's going to be our application. So let's now add it to our application because we actually want to see the end result. So I'm going to go over to my app.js file, and the first thing we need to do is import the navbar. So I'm going to state import navbar from components of navbar, and even on top of my routes, I'm going to add it right here. Say navbar and close it straight away. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, and we're back in our application, and you can now see that we have our application here, and we have a navbar which takes us to different places. So our about takes us to about, our create takes us to create, and it also highlights it for these two when it is selected. The thing is, it does not highlight it for home, so I'm going to make a slight change to get that to work as well. And I have the feeling that inside of my navbar, I need to define a slash. So let's see whether this works. And we're now back in our application, and you can see that it is now highlighted as selected when we are there. So now you can see that we have our beautiful navbar created right here. So the next thing that we need to do right now is take care of some of the resizing things, because what you will notice on our navbar currently is that when we inspect and click on here and take a look at our actual home div, and in general like the content from home, it is all still 100% width, so it goes across my navbar. And this is not what I want, because I want my content to be only after here, because otherwise the user will not see it. So let's make some changes to realize this. First thing that I see in my navbar is that there is something in here called drawer width, and with drawer width we are supposedly able to change the width of our bars. So let's go here. Right now this is set to 240, which is almost equal to this place right here. And if I change it to 200 and go back to my code, you will now see that it's gone back quite a while. Now, for now, I'm just going to set it for 220, but I do not want to have this value right here. I want to kind of pass that in as a parameter. So in order to realize that, I can say that we have a constant, and that is going to be equal to drawer width, and that is going to be equal to props. And then we can place props inside of our navbar. And this means that I can go to another page and there define the drawer width instead of right here. So that means that I can now take my constant drawer width and delete that, and I can go to my app.js file, and in here I can define that drawer width is equal to 220. Or if I need to pass in the drawer width even more, I can say that we have a constant called my width equal to 220, and then I say that my drawer width is going to be equal to my width. And if I now save this, it should still work in the same way. So now from my app.js file, I can set it to 200, and it will become smaller right here. Okay, so now we can change the drawer width from our app.js file, which makes things a whole lot clearer and easier because it's not hidden in some subfolder, or some subfile in my folder structure. Now we need to make sure that all of these routes actually, are going to be inside of my menu instead of also overlapping. And we can do that very easily by making some changes to our navbar. So we are now in the navbar file, and what we're going to do is we're going to specify the place where we would like to see our content. And I know from removing that typography text at the beginning that underneath this toolbar, this is where the content should be placed to always be within these parameters of our navbar. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open some square brackets and I'm going to specify the word content, because this is where our content is going to be. The next thing that we need to do is we need to pass the content right here inside of my props. And what this does is going to take this content variable to my app.js, and in there we can define what the content actually is. So now what we do is we go to app.js and we're going to open my navbar right here. And next to the drawer width, we're also going to specify what content is going to be. So we open this, we open some square brackets, and inside of this content, we're going to place all of the routes that should have our navbar, like so. And now, by doing this, all of the pages inside of our routes, which fall inside of content, are going to be subject to our navbar. And when we save this and go back, let's see what the result is. So back in our application right now, and if I click with my right mouse and I do inspect, and I'm going to go to this icon right here, which makes me select some elements, you can see that home is now equal to this smaller piece next to our navbar. And this is really nice because now all of the content will be nicely in line with my navbar. So we're back in our app, and there's one more functionality that I would like to add. Now this is not 100% necessary to follow the tutorial, so if you don't want to do it, feel free to skip. But what I want to achieve is when I make my screen smaller, like so, the navbar here disappears and we'll have an option here with another button to open it again. Because when users are faced with a smaller canvas, they want to see the content instead of this navigation menu. So let's try to recreate this as well. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create two different drawers. We're going to create one drawer for when the screen is big and one drawer for when the screen is small, but you still want to show it with the button. And of course, I don't want to define these kind of things multiple times. So I'm going to start by defining a constant, and I'm going to call that constant my drawer. And in here, I'm going to define a div, and I'm going to copy from the toolbar onwards, all the way down. So we're going to take toolbar, box, and then the whole list of stuff that I have here, all the way down to box again. So that all that we're left with is this drawer component here. And then we're going to go up and we're going to place this between these two divs because we need to have one component that wraps them all. And now my whole drawer is here. And inside of my existing drawer component, I'm just going to mention that I want to see my drawer. And as you can see in our application, everything right now still fine, still the way it was. Now in my existing drawer, I'm going to change something in the styling, and I'm going to add a parameter called display. And the display, when it is extra small, is going to be none. And when it is small, it is going to be equal to block. And let's save that right here. And this, of course, needs to be a comma, not a semicolon. And now when we are in our code, you can see that by defining that, the display will change based on the width of the screen. So right now it is still all equal to big, but as soon as it hits the breakpoint for small, you can see that the navigation menu will disappear. Now the thing is, we still want to let it appear sometimes because maybe I'm on a mobile device or maybe I'm on a very small screen. I still want to have the option to navigate to different pages using the menu that we've just seen. So I'm going to add a button which is going to conditionally display another drawer that we're going to create afterwards. So on top of the screen, you can see that I have imported an icon button from Material UI Material. And I'm gonna go down to the place where we have the title inside of my application. Here we say that it's our application. And next to that, I'm going to put this icon button like so. And this icon button needs to let the second drawer appear or disappear based on what we say. So I need to add an event here that's going to make sure that something changes. So the first thing that I have already defined on the top of my navbar code is a constant called open /set open. And we're going to use React use state to conditionally change the value of open and set open here. Because when I click the icon button, I want this value to change. And based on the changed value, we're going to display our drawer or we're not going to display it. So by default, I'm going to set it to false. But we now are going to define the function that is going to change this setting by using set open. So on top here, I kind of want that button to set this value right here, the set open, to the opposite of what it is right now. And to do that, we can define a constant, and I'm just going to call it change open status. And this is going to be a function. So we're going to do the round brackets, then we're going to make an arrow, and then opening the squirrely brackets. And what we want to do is we want to set open, but I want to set it to the opposite of what open is right now, because if it's open, I want to close it, and if it's closed, I want to open it. So I'm going to do exclamation mark open, because this is going to take the opposite of false, which is true, or the opposite of true, which is false. And now on my button, I can add this change open status to the action. So I can go to my button right here, icon button, and I can say that on click, I want it to do the change open status function. So now what we need to do is we actually need to create a second drawer. So I'm just going to copy this one and I'm going to paste it underneath. Now this drawer is going to be displaying nothing when it is small and is going to display something after small. But for this one, I want to do it exactly the other way around, because I only want to have the option to show or hide something when the screen, when the other drawer is not there. So I'm just going to set extra small to block and small to none. And this means that this one will be shown all the way until it gets small, and this one will be shown conditionally depending on whether we have clicked that button or not. But by default, because you can see it right here on the top, by default it is set to false. So by default it will not be open. Alright, but we have not actually included any of the logic that's going to tell this button, that's going to tell the second drawer to be open or closed. So let's add that now. And I can do that by setting open to equal to open, because that's going to have the true or false whether something should be open or not. I'm also going to set the variant to temporary, because I don't think it's going to be there all the time. And on close, I am going to give it the same value as what I gave the button on the top here. And that was the function here, change the open status. Because then it's just going to do the opposite of what I did before. Let's check what this does in our server. Okay, we are now back at the screen of our application with our nav bar. When I make it smaller, the drawer does disappear, but I don't see the icon yet. So that means that we still need to change something, so I'll be right back. Turns out I made a small mistake. We actually do need menu icon. So I'm just going to do Ctrl Z and make sure that our menu icon gets back. There we go, our menu icon is now back. And in the button, I actually made quite a big mistake. Let's see it right here. The icon button should actually be a full component like so. And then in there, I should display the menu icon, because that's actually the thing that is going to be displayed on the screen. So let's see what it does now. Alright, so we're back and we now indeed see the menu icon. One important thing that we need to add is some styling, because I don't want to see this button when the page is fully open. So we're going to change icon button, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set color equal to inherit, so it's just going to be the same as usual. And then for the styling, I'm going to open as X, and I'm going to state that the margin right needs to be equal to 2. For the display, we need to set this to small is none. Okay, let's see what this does. Alright, back in our code after these changes. And you can see right now that the button is not there. So let's hope that it is there when we make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay, so now we do see this button in here again. The color is absolutely not white, but that's fine for now. And when we click this, you can see that our navigation menu is still going to be there. And if I click it again, it is going to disappear. And that is exactly what I wanted to achieve. So that's very nice for us right now. And that is actually the last thing that we're doing in this very long tutorial. In this tutorial series, I showed you how you can use Material UI to easily implement the navigation bar into your React.js front end. I also showed you how you can make this dynamic so that when the screen gets smaller, you're able to still see all of the content on the screen. In the next videos, we are going to do a little bit more technical stuff and create, read, update, and delete records from our front end to the database of our backend using both React and also Django. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give a like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye bye.